Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Stoltari, and yes, this is Have Roots Will Travel. I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last few years, I've been featuring Les Filles du Roi and Les Filles Mariées as episodes, trying to get to know these remarkable women who truly founded Quebec. And we've come a long way. We're on episode 63. There are about 262 of Les Filles Mariées. We are definitely getting there. But before we begin, let me show you ways you can support the channel. The first three keep you in the know: subscribe, like, and notify. The next are ways to help the channel grow. Coffee and Patreon are all ways to help the channel grow. And also on my Have Roots Will Travel website, I have a PayPal button. Please check out the Have Roots Will Travel website for information about past episodes as well. And also on YouTube itself, there's a super thanks button that you can use as well. So all of that being said, thank you for all of you who have supported me thus far. Truly, truly, I'm so grateful. Let's get started and get to know our Filles Mariées of this episode. Today we're going to be looking at Les Filles Mariées, the marriageable girls, who came to New France and helped to populate the country. They truly were the founding, not only mothers, but grandmothers, because they were there first. They came to a land that was in many respects very wild, very untamed, and they helped to create the New France that became Quebec. And this occurred between 1634 and 1662. About 262 young ladies came. That averages out to about 10 a year. It's not enough to make a country. Over 28 years they came, and they had tremendous success, but there just wasn't enough of them, and they were not paid to come over. They just took a chance on a new life, and their stories are just incredible. Come with me as we explore another Fille Mariée. Our Fille Mariée for this episode is number 63, Marie Richard. To know Marie a little bit better. She comes to us from a viewer request. I did not have her in my files. Now, Marie was born about 1631 in La Rochelle, France. Her parents were Simon Richard and Catherine Constanceau. Now, La Rochelle was founded during the 10th century and became an important harbor in the 12th. Until the 15th century, La Rochelle was to be the largest French harbor on the Atlantic coast, mainly dealing in wine, salt, and cheese. The name was first recorded in 961 as Rupella, from a Latin diminutive meaning Little Rock. La Rochelle has one of the richest histories of all the towns of France, from its beginnings as an area where the Knights of Templar had their strongest base. Now, Eleanor married Henry Plantagenet in 1152, who would then become, 2 years later, the King of England. Thus, Plantagenet rule until Louis VIII entered it in the 1224 siege of La Rochelle. During this 100 years, almost 100 years, of British control, we saw the beginnings of this Protestant kind of reformation, if you will, and this planted the seeds for much later on what was to be. During this control, Henry II had a castle built called the Vauclair Castle, which the remains of which are still visible in the Place de Verdun. And from 1568, La Rochelle became a center for the Huguenots, in other words, the French Protestants, who were obviously exiled out of, in addition to being persecuted, they were exiled out of France, and many of them made their way to the New World. Now, in the case of Marie, we do not know. I haven't yet found the church that she was baptized in. So all I know is that she is from La Rochelle, and then her parents were Simon Richard and Catherine Constanceau. And even her birth year is not exact. I have it anywhere from 1631 to 1636. So with that being said, let's get to know a little bit about her journey. Marie would come to New France sometime around 1656. We know this because this is the year that she ultimately got married. She may have arrived a year before, but traditionally they would be married within the month. And because you could only sail during the summer or spring, this is logical that she would have arrived sometime in the spring of 1656. We do not know if her parents were alive. We do not know the circumstances. We don't know if she brought any kind of funds with her. We just know that she took a chance and sailed upon a ship bound for something new, and we are ever grateful that she did. So let's get to know the groom that she selected. Now remember that the filles mariées, just like the filles du roi, had a choice. They did not have to marry. They weren't forced into any kind of marriage. And so they had choices. So sometimes you'll see that some of the contracts are annulled because they said, no, I don't want this one. So the groom that she did select, his name was François Fafard, and he was born in 1630 in a place called Auto-en-Auge in France. His parents were Jean Fafard and Antoinette Leverdier. Now, you can see by the circle, it is in Normandy, and it is in the Calvados department. And it's a very small community, about 293. The St. Georges Church dates from the 15th century. I have a picture of a rabbit here because rabbit lovers may have heard of the Blanc de Auto rabbit and that it was first bred here. So that is something unique that to this little tiny area, and this is what it is renowned for in the world. On the 5th of November, 1656, François and Marie were married at Trois-Rivières. So François and Marie would settle at Trois-Rivières, which was only the second settlement of New France. It was named Trois-Rivières because the St. Maurice River has 3 channels that form at the mouth of the St. Lawrence River. Trois-Rivières is French for 3 rivers. It was known as 3 rivers for a long time in North America on the English side. But as the French regained control of their province and of their language, the French version overtook the 3 rivers name, and now all Anglophones in Quebec pronounce it Trois-Rivières. Trois-Rivières was a very strategic location on the St. Lawrence River, and it helped the new nation to grow and prosper. It also proved to be an important battle in the American Revolution, the Battle of Trois-Rivières. Some of you have ancestors in this area at that time, might be surprised at how you might qualify for admission to the daughters or sons of the American Revolution. Now, this is the 1666 census where François is listed, 36 years old. Marie is 30. Jean Fafard, their son. François, Joseph, Jeanne. And this is their children. And they have a domestic working for them, Claude Sauvageau. The family would settle at Batiscan, which is about, I don't know, half an hour outside now today by car from 3 Rivers. The history of Batiscan begins with our old friend Champlain, who met up with a native named Batiscan in 1609, and by 1612 he had named this area Batiscan. In 1636 the seigneurie was granted to Jacques Laforest, at which time it was called La Madeleine. By 1639 it was divvied up and given to the Jesuits. Hence the area did not grow until 1666, when settlers began to arrive. So you can see how close they were. Remember, they were in Trois-Rivières in 1666, and eventually they would become one of the early settlers of Batiscan. Prior to 1670, the inhabitants met at the home of Lieutenant Nicolas Rivard de Lavigne. Between 1670 and 1674, a wooden chapel was constructed, and by 1684, the parish of Saint-François-Xavier de Batiscan is finally formed. I was there this past summer. It truly is a slice of Quebec history and a place you need to visit. It doesn't take very long because it's a very small community, but absolutely worthwhile to visit. They would go on to have 7 children. Jean would marry Marguerite Coux and have 4 children, all of whom made it to adulthood. He was a coureur de bois, and he would establish himself at Detroit. Much information on this side of the family can be found at habitatheritage.org. Françoise would marry Madeleine Marguerite Jobin and would have 8 children, 7 of whom would make it to adulthood. He was also a coureur de bois. Joseph would marry Marguerite Lafont, but did not have any living descendants. Jeanne would marry Jean Chesney, but did not have any descendants. Pierre would marry Thérèse Assia, but would not have any descendants. He was also a coureur de bois and would die somewhere out west. Louis would marry Marie Ursule Jacob and have 6 children, all of whom made it to adulthood. Marie Ursule's mother was Jeanne Fressel, who we did a profile for on number 29. Marie-Anne would marry Julien Laniel and have 6 children, all of whom would make it to adulthood. In the 1681 census, we find François and Marie living with their children Jean, François, Joseph, Jean, Pierre, Louis, and Marie. 1 gun, 4 Batiscan, which, as you know, I've been educated now, they are not goats necessarily. They could be 4 goats, but they could also be 4. Anything with a horn is what that means. So any animal with a horn. So that's what they were counting. 20 Arpents-Valais is about 18 acres, 16 to 18 acres of land. And one thing I really note about this family is, first of all, how close they were, and also all of them survived. Very strong stock, you know. Even the ones who did not leave any descendants, I mean, we don't know, and DNA will eventually prove maybe one of these out in Michigan may have actually had some descendants. We don't know. So we will await the DNA discoveries. She would pass away on May 26, 1695, and she was buried at Batiscan. She was 65 years of age. She and François would have been married 39 years, and she would leave 111 descendants. François would remarry twice, but he did not leave any further descendants, and he would pass away in 1711. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that there is a profile of François and his brother Bertrand in our French-Canadian Ancestors, the volume 7 of our French-Canadian Ancestors. I've given you the information in the notes that you can access in our free French-Canadian Ancestors. That's a fabulous Facebook group that truly links people together and also has those amazing files of all of the profiles. So have a look at that. In that profile, you will also see that there are several names that actually join this family. I just want to draw your attention in case you see it in your tree and are wondering about it. Desnouvelles, Boisjoli, de Francheville, Delorme, Joinville, La Framboise, La Frenée, La Pavane spelled with 2 N's, Lonval, Macouche, and Masson. It's very important that you realize that sometimes the names will become a D name and then ultimately become the last name and kind of lost in history. Part of how easy sometimes French-Canadian history is and how absolutely challenging it can be as well. So there is a lot of mystery in the simplicity of French-Canadian genealogy. And as always, I love to let you know about some of the resources I use constantly. In this particular one, I'd like to highlight, because of the nature of the descendancy, the French-Canadian Heritage Society of Michigan, of which I am a member. They publish an incredible journal. Please consider supporting them, and especially if your ancestors are from the Michigan, Detroit area or had any kind of, connection with that. I think it would be very, very worth your while to basically look at all. They've been around for so many years, since 1980. So obviously they've got a lot of history in the back and in the journals, and I've downloaded all the journals and just absolutely I'm amazed by the work that these professionals have done. So please have a look and consider supporting them. And so we have gotten to know Marie. She was truly one of those pioneers of Trois-Rivières and of Batiscan. We truly can admire her fortitude and her strength and her ability to keep going. And François obviously was the love of her life. And this is a girl from La Rochelle who met a man from Normandy. And it's a lovely, lovely love story. So let us thank her and be grateful that she came to our shores and bless her memory. I also want to say thank you to my patrons and supporters and all of my viewers. Your support of me has truly touched my heart over these last few years. I really, really appreciate every one of you. So thank you so much. And I will see you on episode 64 of Les Filles Mariées. Until then, au revoir.